Hey, I'm Luis.
And I'm Luis.
And you're listening to the Content is Profit podcast.
So, how do businesses and creators like us, who did not cheat with hacks and tactics and don't want to be stuck in the content wheel of death, how do we build a modern media team and profit from our content?
In this creators economy, pre-filled templates and content calendars have become the solution for those that are not willing to put in the work and build a real business. Those that get rewarded are the ones that create and control their own process.
Content can be a distraction or your biggest lever. Here, you learn to develop the systems to create consistently, build trust with your audience, and get the attention of those that are willing to give you money.
Go to contentisprofit.com to get started today and join the community.
Let's go!
Great. Let's go, FONZI.
I'm so pumped up, guys, and today we have an incredible guest, and we're gonna be talking all about setting yourself apart in an influencer-packed world. Ooh,
that sounds like that to me.
That is what we call hashtag juicy juicy.
Hashtag juicy juicy. Before we get started though, FONZI, do we have a sponsor today?
Indeed we do. Thank you for asking, good sir.
You're welcome.
And today's sponsor is your own, the BIZBROS. Yes, this podcast is sponsored by Content Momentum. If you are looking to multi-purpose your podcast or video content and turn it into profit, make sure you slide in the DMs at BIZBROSCO on Facebook, on Instagram.
That's right, guys. And every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, the incredible audio of the show comes out to your favorite podcasting platform. So go ahead and follow the show, leave us a review, and follow us on social media at BIZBROSCO. I just realized I took FONZI's script.
Yeah.
To me.
Absolutely. You took it over, but it's okay.
Oh, boy.
Let's get this party started.
I was so inspired, FONZI.
I know, I noticed.
Happy Friday. Today's guests come from a very special friend and Content is Profit family member, Rim Hardbacks. Once again, make sure you are proactively building your relationships and network.
I'm going to be honest, I love today's guest positioning. Marketing for introverts. It's a scary, noisy world out there, and today's guest mission is to teach you how to set yourself apart without falling for the noisy marketing trap.
That's right. He's the host of the Micro Famous podcast and the founder of the podcasting agency Pursuing Results. Not to mention that he seems to be a pretty talented musician as well. Maybe we'll be lucky enough to hear him play something.
Oh yeah, maybe Smelly Cat. Who knows? Can't wait. Please welcome host of Micro Famous podcast, the author of Micro Famous, and the sting of the podcasting world, Matt Johnson.
What is up, guys? That was a very impressive introduction. Coming from somebody who's on StreamYard once a week, if I tried that with my co-host of one of my other podcasts, we'd step all over each other and screw up that intro every way till Sunday. That was extremely impressive.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank you so much. It only took us 188 tries, and still, I literally stole some lines from FONZI. That's fine. We get inspired, but we appreciate the feedback. Yeah.
I think part of the fun of it is to roll with the punches. You know, when we mess up, it's like we just embrace it and then we just keep going at it. But Matt, thank you for being here. We are extremely excited. I'm telling you, I really do love your positioning, and I can't wait to dive deeper into marketing for introverts. But before we get started, who's Matt? You know, for those that are listening right now, who's Matt Johnson, right? Where did this passion for marketing for introverts and for music, of course? I mean, we know a little bit of your backstory, but for those listening.
All right, so the 60-second bio. Least likely entrepreneur ever. Homeschooled, pastor's kid. Thought I'd be either a minister or a musician. Neither one of them. I chased the dream as a musician for a while. The whole time I was reading business books and marketing books. I didn't quite know why. And then in my 30s, I decided, okay, I need to quit chasing the dream as a musician because the landscape has changed. And just, I didn't want to be like a pro independent musician.
Yeah.
But I built this marketing skill set. So I said, well, let's go into the business world where that's actually a lot more lucrative and just move music to more of a side passion project thing.
Yeah.
And I got really fortunate to get in with a really good agency with a very good mentor. And within 6 months, I was running freelancing, consulting, and then that led to me being an agency owner. So flash forward to today, I run a podcast production agency. We work with amazing, business coaches, consultant, thought leader types. The agency takes me about 4 hours a week to run. I live 2 blocks from the beach in San Diego, and my life is completely different from what it was in 2014. So that's the 60-second bio.
Wow, that is absolutely amazing. First of all, guys, this right here is a masterclass on master your 60-second bio.
I know.
I mean, I feel like I know you now from like 10 years ago, Matt. And also, when are we doing a meetup at your house, man, by the beach?
I know. By the way, like, Matt, I don't know if you know this, but FONZI's moving out of the Contents Prophet house. He's going to the beach. So good stuff. And he's just leaving me behind with the baby and the wife and whatever.
Yeah,
it's all good.
It's time for me to spread my wings, and the beach is a pretty nice place to live. Not gonna lie,
it really is. It makes a difference, especially last year. The only thing that kept me sane was getting to the beach.
Yes,
I bet. Yeah.
One of the things I love in what we talked behind cameras before and now this, right? It's the fact that you went ahead and you created, your reality. You're like, okay, this is, the environment I wanna be. You recognize also a path maybe that was not ideal. We've shared our story with soccer, and for us, it was literally like that was our north. Like every decision that we made in our life was to go play professionally. And it got to a point where in each of our stories, there's a moment that we're like, we have to wake up. I mean, this is it, right? Like what was it, right? And for both of us was a very different moment in our lives, but it led to this. It led to a similar path as well. So I want to say thank you for sharing that, right? So what was that easy for you? Because like for us, you mentioned you mentioned that you were reading like these marketing books, right? For us, we were reading books, but as a punishment. And by the way, we love our dad. Like we've shared this story. Like our dad was like, "You are grounded. Go read this book," right? And we're like, so we build this like reaction towards reading, where it's like we associated it to that moment, right? Now, not anymore. Like right now, you don't see him here in the toys, but like all this right here is full of books, and then on the other side too, FONZI's room is inundated with books, and we consume and we learn and we create these frameworks, and that's what we love to do now. Yeah, that facilitated that transition into we're interested in this. How is that transition? Because there's a lot of people out there that are in a place where they might not be like fully happy, and they're like, okay, I want to create this. I don't know what direction to take.
Yeah, well, honestly, I joke around that I've had like 7 midlife crises or something like that. Like I can get one knocked out before lunch. And it really is true. I think when it came time to like let the dream go as a musician, like that was really tough.
Yeah.
And it really was. It was like putting that dream to death. And I think if you're in that situation where you're chasing something that it just the pieces are not coming together, it's one of the hardest questions to answer is, should I give up, or am I on the precipice of something and should I just keep going? And at the end of the day, it's a lot of times it's not about you, it's about other people and finding the audience for what you're doing. Especially music, but business content is very similar. Yeah. Like their odds are, if you're any good, there's some audience out there that's going to enjoy your stuff. The question is, how long are you willing to hang in there until you find them, right? If you know they're out there and you just haven't found them yet, then maybe you keep going. But for me, it was like, especially with the music thing, it was that I realized finally, by getting enough into the industry, I realized that the lifestyle day to day was not what I wanted. And I carried that over into business, because what I realized is that being a professional musician, you have to be your own salesperson for multiple hours a day. Then you also have to go behind the scenes and create the product that you're selling. And that's really hard to do. It's hard to do as a musician, and it's hard to do as an entrepreneur. Yeah. It's just not easy. And I think if you're an entrepreneur, freelancer, whatever, the goal should be to get out of that phase as quickly as humanly possible. Either most likely you hand off the operations, the actual doing of the work as quickly as possible. As a musician, you can never do that because you are the product. So you always have to be creating. Yeah. And I just realized, like, I looked down the road of that lifestyle and realized, man, that lifestyle is not the life that I want to lead. That's what finally triggered me to go, okay, I'm going to put this dream to death, because I realize it's not actually my dream, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Sorry, FONZI, I know that you have a very smart question, but I want to make it, he's the smart question guy. But I personally had that same realization, right? Like I was in a position where I was in Spain playing, and some things happened around the industry and the things, and we were overtraining at that point, and the environment was not the thing that I thought it was going to be once I got there. And then and this happened when I was 18, right? Like I'm 31 now, but I was like, I sat down and I had that really honest conversation. It's like, is this really the thing that I want to do every single day, right? Am I willing to do this, or is the dream so shiny that like, is that the thing that's pushing me instead of the love for the thing that I do? And don't get me wrong, I love the sport, right? And I love it, but that was a real conversation I had to have with myself to like, am I willing to continue to put in the work like this? Am I actually enjoying the process, right? We have another story with screen printing t-shirts, you know, at 90-degree weather in Florida. That was like when one of the things that we started, right? And it was like, we do not enjoy the process. Like, we have to stop doing this, right? Like the dream is, you know, build a business, build a movement, build something, right? Maybe this is not the vehicle. So I appreciate your thought process, and I love the fact that you brought that up, because that might be something that is not really common on somebody out there. That might be really scary to face, right? For me, it was like, you know, afterwards, I didn't talk to my dad for about 5 months, right? When I made that decision, because that was in North, right? Like, and we're great now, but like,
I feel like you're throwing rocks at Dad today.
I know. Sorry, Dad. No, but you know, but that was a thing that happened, right? It was 18 years of this, right? So, you know, I relate so much. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, man, I'm curious on, you know, on Monday we were talking to Rich Schaefer, and I don't know if you're familiar with him, and we asked him, it's like, hey, what do people need to look for when, you know, trying to be successful? And the first thing he mentioned is you need to know what type of entrepreneur you are, what type of person you are. Look inside of yourself, right? And I relate this to what you just mentioned, right? You started looking inside of yourself, and I'm curious how that process looks like. Right, because there are people out there. We live, like we mentioned, noisy world. Right, there's so much going on. We spend so much time in our phones. Like, our attention is just consuming other stuff. How do you prioritize paying attention to yourself and listening to yourself to be able to make moves like this ones? Right.
Well, I mean, it happens in the process. So first of all, you actually have to be moving forward. And when you have that goal in mind, that dream of what you want your life to look like, and you're constantly making adjustments, it happens naturally, but it doesn't happen unless you're actually in action. Like, you have to be like a heat-seeking missile. Like, you got to be on the move, and then you make adjustments while you're on the move. You don't make adjustments from sitting back trying to figure out what you're going to do. So there's only so much you can do just sitting around. As much as I love to sit around and think, believe me, Starbucks with a coffee and a notepad is one of my favorite things ever. But overall, that kind of stuff happened in the course of like going from working inside of an agency, going out, striking out as a freelancer, eventually getting pulled into starting my own agency, like that journey along the way, and watching how I ran the business and watching what felt good and what didn't. That's what broke through those insights. That's what created those insights. I remember there was a point, at one point I was in 4 different businesses. And I remember getting out of a meeting one time, and I was the one with the longest to-do list, because I was the one that just got shit done. Right. So I came out with the longest to do. I'm like, this is unsustainable. I'm exhausted, and I've got a list a mile long of stuff I know is not going to get done before the next meeting. And I'm like, okay, I gotta refine down and just focus on one thing. And that decision was a life changer in and of itself. But eventually, I mean, it forced me to like get rid of all those 3 other businesses that I loved my partners on, and I loved the dream of all that stuff. But you can't chase, you can't push 4 different rocks up 4 different hills. But that, just as an example, that was one of those points where I got into action. I said yes to a lot of stuff, and then I pared down later. And I found the right thing out of all the stuff that I was involved in to kind of make it my one thing. But those opportunities, I wouldn't have had that opportunity if I hadn't gotten into action and said yes to a lot of stuff for about 2 years.
I love that. There's actually an image came to my head. I remember when I was back in high school, we saw this movie. I don't remember the name of the movie, but there was a scene where some guy was saying "action, reaction," right? It was like French, right? It was like "action, reaction."
Great accent.
Which means, right, action, then comes a reaction, right? And this is what I'm listening right now. Like, you need that motion to be able to start probably getting this input, right, as you go, and then you have information with which you can make a decision. So for those that maybe are just like sit down thinking too much, again, I'm like you, man. I love thinking, right? But action is a must for sure. I agree 100% with that.
Yeah, it's got to be a mix of both.
Yeah. So how do you what type of action do you need to take first, right? Because we live, again, in a noisy world. There is so many things to do, so many shiny objects out there. And I mean, you mentioned it. Number one thing is consistency, right? Like, are you willing to endure long enough doing something? So we got to make sure that we are taking the right action, but we cannot wait to know what is the right action, because then we're not going to do anything, right? So how do we choose?
Well, here's the thing. You never know. So you have to choose. And then you let the chips fall where they may, because you're never going to know. And that's one of the hardest parts to explain to somebody that isn't yet successful and doesn't have the mindset for it, is they want to know, if I do X, Y, and Z, will I be successful? How successful will I be, so that I can measure the difference and figure out if I'm willing to pay the price?
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is you don't know any of those factors. All you know is where you're at now. You don't know you don't know if it's going to work. You don't know how well it's going to work. And you don't know whether the pain is going to be worth it. And I can bet you, if you actually talk to a lot of successful people, they would go, if you told me how painful the journey was going to be, I probably wouldn't do it, except that I would. Now that I'm here, I would do it all over again. But I would do some things differently, because everybody has that story of, I did this, I tried that, and only some of those things worked. It's like the 80-20 rule. Like, only 20% of the stuff you try is going to work, but that somewhere in that 20% is a home run.
Absolutely.
And you just double down on the home run. Yeah, like, if you know that going in, that's the way the world works, it makes it a lot easier to just step up to the plate again and swing, knowing that, hey, 99 of those aren't going to be home runs, but you don't need them all to be. You only need one. My agency is a good example. Like, I realized I didn't need to be in 4 different businesses to make the impact that I want to make. I'm able to make the impact through the one business that I run. And that one business sells one package to one type of person. Period. End of story.
Wow.
Yeah.
But I get all the impact and the income and the freedom and all that stuff that I want, that I thought I needed to have all my fingers and all these different pies to get. I don't need it, because I found one business that gave all of it to me. It took a lot of experimentation to get there, but I found it. And then now that I have it, I don't feel the need to be involved in a whole bunch of different things. But I would have never come to that point if I didn't step up to the plate and take a whole bunch of swings.
Yeah. I love that, man. And sorry, I'll let you chime in here in just a second.
Thank you.
But Matt, it was a few months ago, actually. I saw a video of Jeff Bezos talking, and he was talking about making decisions. And he said, in life, there's probably just like 3 decisions that are non-reversible, right? He's like, you just need to make a choice and go with it, right? And stick with it long enough to get the results, get those inputs, right? And then make another decision. And I just love the way you put it, right? People wants to know in advance what is the price to pay, but you don't really know until you are already doing it, right? And the only way to test, right, to measure whether one decision is better than the other one, is to just take action in one, see the results, and then go and take action, make another decision, take action, and then compare, right, which one is more beneficial for me, for the type of entrepreneur that I am, for the business that I'm trying to create, the impact that I'm trying to put out there into the world. So for you listening right now, are you making choices, right? Are you just sitting with the decisions in front of you, trying to evaluate way too much and not taking action? Instead, just pick one and go with it and take action.
A couple things, right? I remember when we had to make that decision for the show, for example, we used to all our mentors, the people that we work with, the people that, that are even our clients at the time, right? They're like, where's your content? You guys should be publishing. Where's your stuff? And we're like, the agency, the team building, so much noise, right? Noisy world again, right? It tends to be a consistent. And we decided that the show was the vehicle, right? And we're like, okay, this is the decision we're making. And at first it was just Fonzie and I, first 20 episodes. Don't go listen to those. But we're very proud of that, right? Because it got us moving. And then after that, it's like, okay, let's interview some people. What's happened, right? And now the show itself, the vehicle, has evolved to a point where it doesn't only provide the marketing material or the exposure that we were able to build, right, with publishing. But also develops incredible relationships, partnerships, sometimes clients. Like, it's just incredible, right? And it just means so much to even to the point that, hey, if we need to cut everything, the last thing that goes is the show. Like, not even, right? Like, there's going to be some way that this thing continues, right? Because all that thing, right? But I've been like, over the last week or so, I've been obsessed with this one show called My First Million. Like, some part that like on the investing side of things, right? And I'm like, I'm very curious on the mindset of it. And they were talking about something really interesting about the investor mindset, right? And Sean, the other co-host, both of them have different investment funds. One invests in like tech companies in India, the other one all around. One of them is the founder of the newsletter, The Hustle, right? It's like these guys are in the game, right? Playing the game.
Yeah.
And he was like, you got to understand something. To be an investor, you got to be very comfortable with taking the risk. And I assume that some things are not going to work out. Like I assume that some of my investments are not going to work out. So how do I relate that to my day-to-day or the decisions as an entrepreneur? It's the same thing, right? Like I might not be investing money at first. I might be investing my time, right? If the resources are very low. But those decisions, I got to be okay with seeing the results. And those might not be as expected. But guess what? If they do work, the payout is so big over time. Let's bring it to let's say an agency like yours, for example, or bringing in team members, right? That might be an investment up front of some degree, but at the same time, you're getting a ton of time back, right? That then you can dedicate to something else, for example, right? Instead of being in the weeds of producing something, right? So I love that. And I love that you touch on it because it's like, okay, we gotta be okay with making those decisions and understanding that some of those are not going to work out. And the reflection came because a few conversations that we've had with people, even with bigger companies, like, tell me, what is the secret recipe on content, for example? What is the secret? What is the one thing? And if we were to push that one button that tells us like, this is how you're going to crush, right? We're like, well, it depends on so many factors, like who you are. Are you willing to publish? Like, are you willing to talk? Are you willing to record video, just audio? Like, what is it, right? Are you willing to be consistent, which tends to be the number one thing, right? So I appreciate you for bringing that up. And I think it's a great, point of contact in here to, as an entrepreneur and a content producer, we have to be aware. Now, perfect. I love this transition here because the positioning, the geeks, the marketers on us. How did you come up with that positioning? Was that by chance? Was that by design? How did you come up with that angle?
Okay. It was in conversation with the client, and they asked me the question, why are you not, you've basically built the perfect marketing system for introverts. Why aren't you telling people that's what it is? And I'm like, well, that's really interesting because, like in my agency, it's half and half. Podcast production and the stuff that we do, like it works just as well for extroverts as it does for introverts. But she asked me like the overall system, the micro-famous system, and just what all goes into it. She's like, you've essentially built this system that allows you to be an introvert, not be on social media hardly at all, and still grow the business, still be visible and all this stuff. And yeah, it was such an interesting question because it brought up the idea of like, why don't I divide the market of people I'm going in half and willingly sacrifice the extroverts? Like that's a big decision. I think that's what trips most people up, because in order to get a really clear positioning, like something that just rolls right off the tongue and people go, holy cow, I've never heard that before. You've got to give something up. You've got to give up the fantasy of selling to everybody so you can get the reality of actually selling to a few of them and strongly attracting a few of the right people. That's what trips so many people up, is they're like, oh, I don't want to give that, I don't want to give up that segment of my audience. It's like, well, but if you give that up, the clarity that you get of going after the people that you're most passionate and most excited to serve way offsets it. And the good part about it is then you can get really clear about, okay, well, if I'm not going to go after everybody and I'm going to only go after the exact right people that I want to speak to, well, you might as well go after the most valuable slice of the market, right? So all these people that are putting out content and right out of the gate, they're trying to monetize it by selling low price products to a big audience. I would tell them to go do the exact opposite. And I stumbled on this strategy by complete accident. So I do not claim to be a genius, but I went and developed through the podcasting, like relationships with the highest level people in the industries I was in. And those were my first clients. That made a huge difference, because when I did that and they talked about me behind the scenes at conferences and stuff, it was completely different. I've never sold a really low price product en masse. I've never built a big audience, and I make plenty of money and have a great life because I went after the most valuable slice of my market first. And now the experience of working with the most demanding, the most influential, the most highest level, the biggest risk takers, the biggest early adopters in the space, it completely changed the type of content I would have put out versus if I went to the lower end of the market first.
Absolutely.
When I go to the high end of the market first, it forced me to get really good really quick. And then now I can go to a lower end of the market with like templates and tools and systems that are already completely done and built and have been operating for these high level people for 5 years. So it changed everything. So I think there's a lot of things that once you get clear on once you decide you don't need everybody, once you decide you don't need the maximum number of eyeballs on your content, then you go, okay, well, who are the right people? And if I'm going to serve a smaller group of people, let's make sure that they're the right people and they have money.
Yeah.
Yes.
Step number one, they need to have money. Yeah. Right? I mean,
it's such a common sense thing, but it gets overlooked all the time.
Absolutely, man.
Gong moment, by the way. That was the gong in there.
Put it again. Put it again.
Okay, gong moment. Hold on. And the crowd is going crazy.
The crowd is just going wild, man. Matt, you just crushed it. You're getting a standing ovation over here. Yeah, no, this was absolutely amazing. Just like, we kind of stumbled around something similar of what you just explained, right? We got indoctrinated in this marketing world through the ClickFunnels community. I don't know well, yeah, there you go. You're familiar with them, right?
I'm familiar.
Yeah, they have, lots of education, right? But one of the first things that they promote, or I don't know if they still promote this at the very beginning, but it was their self-liquidating offer, right? They said, you need to have a self-liquidating offer, which it makes total sense, right? I mean, if you can acquire customers at a break-even point, that's game-changing, right? But for somebody that didn't have a service at the moment, didn't have developed a skill that you could either monetize as a freelancer, and of course, you had no digital products, like, it's very, very challenging, right? So we spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to sell these low ticket things. And it wasn't until we joined a different community, right? This person later became our coach and mentor. And it was a light bulb for us when he talked about most people try to start at the bottom of what they call the value ladder, right? It's like, instead, go to the mid section of the value ladder, high, mid, high, right there, where you sell a service, a high ticket service, and start there, because that is gonna give you cash to be able to run the business.
It was high ticket product for us meant higher ticket service, right? So it was like, it makes more sense because at the end of the day, it's month to month, right? And we can build upon that and so on. So that was a big idea moment.
Yeah, for us, that was a gong moment right there. Sorry, Matt.
Yeah. Well, and I want to just to relate it to content real quick. It changes the content that you put out. Because if you're selling a low ticket offer, and let's say you're separate the ads part of it, right? Yeah. But your main thing is you're selling a low ticket offer, and so you're on social media, and that's your goal, is to build an audience around a low ticket offer. Well, then that sets the expectation right off the bat that the goal of being on social media is the maximum number of eyeballs, which is like coming out right out of the gate as a musician and going, hey, I'm going to start a popular band. It's like, okay, great. That's going to lead you to start the next Backstreet Boys or NSYNC. You're like, it's just going to lead you in the wrong direction. If you start off with saying, I'm going to build a cult following first, then you have a chance at doing something interesting and important. If you start the idea, like being on social media and producing content, and the end goal is selling them a low priced offer, it gets you kind of off on the wrong track right away. If you start with selling a high price thing and you're doing really interesting things behind the scenes, like you're experimenting with really high level clients and you're trying things and you're figuring out what works, that's what you can share on social media. That is a completely different kind of content. I'll give you an example. So back in the day when I was at my old agency, I was just an account manager getting promoted up into like business development. I was going to start hopping on these webinars. And the CEO that I worked for walked into the office one day and just said, Johnson, you should start a blog. I'm like, raise his hand to the heavens. Johnson. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean I should start a blog? He's like, you should literally start a blog where you talk about the marketing experiments you're doing with clients and share screenshots of the stuff you're doing with their video and email marketing. He's like, you should call it something like, it's like, I don't know, like Matt Johnson relentlessly pursuing results. I'm like, okay, fine. So I went and bought the domain Pursuing Results. Yeah. So, and that's what I did. So every week I would send a blog post out to my agency clients that I was in charge of, and I would just share the stuff that we were doing to improve their subject lines, improve their open rates, improve the topics of their videos, what topics are working for other people that the other clients could steal and stuff like that. And that laid the foundation for me to leave and spring out as my own freelancer and a consultant. And then that eventually became the company website for my agency. Yeah. It just kind of evolved from there. I literally didn't even have a good company name. I just kept rolling with that because that's literally the domain that I owned. And it's still the name of it today.
Very important question. Very, very important question. Was your boss happy after that decision when you left?
He was very happy.
Okay, that's good.
That's awesome.
Now here's what's interesting though. The most fun part of it was seeing the how would I term this? I don't know. The quality of the interactions with those clients shifted dramatically over the course of from a couple of months because I took over like their hardest clients in the agency, the ones that had been there the longest, the ones that were jaded, the ones that had been doing it for a couple of years, and they were just kind of on autopilot. Yeah. It went from hard to get a hold of to, okay, I'll take a call, to opening up to me about their business and treating me like a consultant.
Yeah.
Wow. And then I could get stuff done. I could text somebody and they'd be like, oh yeah, for sure, let's jump on a call. In 2 months. That's the power of not only just sharing content, but when you're sharing content because you're working with high level influential people and you're doing interesting creative work, when you do go to share content, it's a different level of content and people resonate with that immediately. The right people. Yeah. The right people see that and go, holy cow, I don't see that. You're not just repeating what Gary Vee's saying. Like, you're doing something different and interesting. I'm going to pay attention to this guy and see where this goes. Yeah. Like, that's the kind of response that you get, as opposed to sharing something when you're trying to build a mass audience, which leads you to things like just copying what Gary Vee says or his style and just kind of doing more of the same. So I think if people focus on higher ticket, like doing something new with influential people that are the early adopters in their industry, it's going to change the quality of the content you put out, and that content is going to make other influential, high quality people drawn to you.
Yeah. Now, devil's advocate a little bit here. Love it. By the way, we are 120% agree with you, because that's exactly how we were able to build from the platform, from the show.
Yeah, before you go into devil's advocate mode here, so
he can already see it. That's
like Matt, the similarities here are I love this, man, because look, like after we realized that moment with the value ladder that I just told you about, and we started the podcast, we started realizing that the podcast was such an incredible medium to open doors that we would have no chance to open if it wasn't because of that medium, right? And, I mean, we got to connect with incredible entrepreneurs, right? I mean, Todd Brown, Rich Schaefer, the one and only Matt Johnson, right? And dude, like, that was absolutely mind-blowing for us, because at that moment is when we realized, wow, first, like you mentioned, the quality of the content is way higher, right? Because we're having conversations with these thought leaders that are literally, first, they're sharing with you their knowledge and with the audience. And then second, you are putting yourself at their level as well by having this conversation. And then we were like, guess what? And also, they are a perfect fit for us to help them with what we do. So then we started saying, what if we just ask them, right? It's like, hey, what can we show you what we do, right? And they were so open about it. And you know, some of them were even grateful, like, yeah, absolutely, I would love it. And that was mind-changing for us. We kind of like stumble upon that as well. And honestly, that's why we still do podcasting. It's just like, it's just such a huge lever to your business, your personal relationships, your personal growth. We haven't found a downside to this platform, this medium.
Okay. No, I haven't either. It's really amazing.
Yeah. Now you go with your devil advocate right there.
With what? What did you say, bro? Okay. Anyways, Matt. Okay. So here's the thing. How do we transition, right? Because for we have these two moments. Like, you have your moment. We had our moment where we saw it. We're like, this is the potential, right? So.
Are we having a moment right now? Are we having a moment, guys?
I mean, we clearly, for the past hour, yes. But we have these conversations, right? When for us it's very clear because we've been there. We're like, we thought that we had to like talk to everybody and figure it out, and it was just challenge, right? And then we figured it out. We were like, okay, this is our one person, that this is the message, this is the thing that we want to do, right? And it continues to evolve over time, but we're like, okay, product wise, right? How does somebody transition from that? Do they have to go through that crazy like discovery moment, like, or how do we make that transition? How do we as a coach, or have you encountered, right? Like I'm asking more on the business side of things, right? Let's say somebody comes to you. Is your message so clear that when they come to you, they're done? They're like, we call it the frictionless sell, right? They're like, I believe already in this.
Rarely. Yeah.
Okay.
Very rarely.
Very
is the
rarely.
answer to that question. Yeah.
Yes. Which is great, right? Same thing with us. Now,
Yeah.
what is the level of education, and how do we show that that's the path, right?
Well, okay. So one answer to this is not easy, but I tried to do it in the book, for example. So in the book, there's a little diagram of what I call the clear and compelling idea. Because most people, if you're an expert at what you do have underneath all the stuff you're saying, probably some kernel in there that could be polished into a gem.
Yeah.
Something in your messaging could be clear, and it could be more compelling. Now, not everybody. You know, if you're an average service professional and you really don't do anything different than other people in your industry, and your only difference is your personality, it's harder to help you. Yeah. But you know, most of the coaches, consultants, experts, freelancers, consultants, like they have something unique that they do. They have unique opinions. It's just buried underneath all this lack of clarity. And so to me, like my goal when I take on a client is to get them from that stage where they're kind of unclear and compelling, because there's something compelling about their messaging, but it's buried underneath a whole bunch of stuff that's confusing people. Yeah. I want to strip away all the stuff that confuses people so that it's clear and compelling. That's my goal, is for them to deliver a clear and compelling idea. So it has to be razor sharp clear to the right people, and it has to be compelling in the sense that it gets them off the couch and moving, learning more, getting on a call with you, whatever that form takes. They've got to get off the couch and moving. So it has to, like, in order for your messaging, like, you know when it's right when you get this response. And I used to get this all the time when I first started the podcast agency. I would tell them what we did, done for you. We book the guest. You just show up and talk and record, and we do everything else. And it was like, holy cow, are you serious? I didn't even know that existed. I'm like, that's what we do. Yeah. They're like, well, hey, like I don't even have to ask for a phone call. They were like, when can we get on the phone again? Because the idea was right. So I had to do less sales. And all I had to do is just give them the idea. And it was like, oh my God, I want to learn more. That's when you really know that you've got the clear and compelling idea. So that solves a lot of problems, right? If you can get that honed down and polished to where it's in that state, it makes everything in the business really, really a lot easier.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Yeah. What comes to mind is, how do you polish that idea, right? The first thought that comes to my mind is publishing, speaking, right? And having these conversations.
Yes, it's a two-way conversation with the audience. Yes, it is publishing content, it's having phone calls, and it is watching for the reaction. Yeah. And getting interviewed on podcasts actually is another good way to do it. So if you're doing anything where you can talk about what you're doing and the results that you're getting for clients, you can go out and get interviewed on podcasts. And you're watching for the reaction from the host. You're watching for the comments you get from the audience. You're having phone calls with people in your ideal market saying like, hey, this is what I'm working on. And you're watching for that holy cow reaction. That's when you know you got it.
Yeah. Thanks you for putting it so clear. And as you were describing that, we've had those moments, right? And somehow we've been able to explain it also during the challenge and on the workshop that we've been able to do. And you know, we have one very clear. We talk a lot about the publishing pyramid, and that's a concept that was out of an interview that was done to us, right? It was born out of the answer of that question, and the reaction was so clear and like, what? That ended up turning into a keynote. That ended up, we ended up presenting at Podfest. And then there was another idea called the podcasting profit formula. Same thing. People are like, what? That ended up being another keynote for VidFest, right? And then we developed a whole workshop around it. And those are those gems. So I love that those are born out of that. And now, every time we jump on a guesting interview, Fonzie always has his notepad. And I started to do that habit too, because as we are explaining these things, all these ideas are like coming out of our mouth, and you're like, oh my gosh, I wish I recorded that or put it on paper. So people are like, what are you guys taking notes? It's like, you're a guest. I'm like, yeah, you don't know what's about to happen, right? So I love that you share that, and that I really want to encourage everybody like listening, right? Is the phone calls that you have with your dream people, right? Take those notes. Make sure that if it resonates, look for the expression in their eyes. Those things that you were saying, right? If you're guesting, if you're putting content out there, 45 Live for us was life changing the 3 times that we've done it, and it's because of that, right? Because we're explaining these concepts and like, oh, that makes sense. Fonzie was doing a private workshop the other day. Same thing. He came down to the coffee shop and like, dude, look at this like framework that I just explained, right? Like to explain this concept that we have. And we're like, sounds good. This is one of those gems, right? Let's put it in the list and continue to develop it. So I appreciate you breaking it down for us.
Yeah, I mean, being a marketer is being an observant and a listener, honestly. Like, most of it can be summarized into being a good listener and observe their reactions. That is huge. I love when people's eyes just open and you're like, oh, this is a gem.
Yeah, I know. And empathy is such a huge part of that. And it's a hard skill set to build. It's well worth building. But the ability to put yourself in the shoes of other people and look at it from their perspective, it's everything in marketing. And it's one of the toughest things to do if you're in dire straits financially. So one of the things that I accidentally did right is right out of the gate, I just got a freelance like contract with one client. And it was kind of like an open-ended, we're going to do a whole bunch of stuff. And, this is kind of the base of it. We knew we were going to do a podcast together, but then I was going to do a bunch of other stuff. But it was just enough that I didn't have to worry about paying my rent. Right. So, for anyone that's come for like that, the whole ClickFunnels thing is tough because you're trying to take people that are not business people yet and turn them into information marketers. Yeah. Info marketing is tough. It is a big challenge, right? Yep. Running a service business is a lot easier, especially in the early days, and it takes the pressure off you to where you don't have to worry about your finances. And then you can step outside of yourself and you can have empathy for the people that you're selling to, and you can start to see things from their angle. When your paycheck, when that client saying yes to you or that prospect saying yes is what determines whether you have to start looking for an apartment in a cheaper part of town. Yeah. When those are the conversations going on inside your head, it's really hard to have empathy for the other person and sell them the way they want to be sold, create the product that they want to buy, have the conversations that give you the feedback that lead you to it. Like, it's tough to do all that stuff. Yeah. So if you're on the beginning end of the entrepreneurial spectrum, get your personal finances taken care of as quickly as humanly possible by 1 to 2 core clients that you keep, and then tinker outside that, because it's really hard to tinker when your own personal income is on the line.
Yeah.
Wait.
Another goal moment.
The audience going wild. That was amazing here.
You keep dropping these golden boulders, man. Like we order some helmets on Amazon so we can protect ourselves from all these golden boulders that are dropping here.
Nuggets, golden nuggets
Nope, they don't do it anymore.
Yeah, they don't do it.
Oh man, that's funny.
Matt, thank you. Like everything that you've shared today, like personally, we resonate so much because we are being part of that journey too, and we saw the results. We saw that, like, especially for us, everything changed when COVID hit. We used to help a lot of local businesses, and then the show gave us that ability, right, to go after these people, and we were able to build a team. And then this, it's like, oh my gosh, this is the thing, right? So I appreciate, and I hope this helps everybody listening, right? Like, if you are in that position where it's like, where do I go? What do I do? Like, what is the thing that I do? This episode is a roadmap to that, right? Yeah. And I appreciate you for sharing everything with us. Now, couple last questions as we wrap up the show, Matt. Number one is, what is a good action point, right, for that entrepreneur? And I think it's clear. Like, I won't say it, but I think it's been very clear with the theme of the show today. But it's that, what is that one thing that they can do today to make that momentum, right? We could be content wise / product wise, right?
Okay. To me, it's the choice. So one of the biggest, most impactful things I ever did in the business was this question popped out of the blue. I don't know who to credit it to because I probably heard it somewhere, but the question popped into my mind. If somebody landed in San Diego and texted me out of the blue and said, hey, Matt, let me buy you coffee, buy you a drink, let's meet up. who would I enthusiastically say yes to? And I should only be selling to those people. Right? And so I started to build the entire agency and all the marketing and all the content that I put out around that person. Wow. And so those are the people that I attract into my life. So if you ask yourself, I mean, well, I think one of the best things anybody can ask that question. You can be an executive, you can be an entrepreneur, you can be established, you can be a small business owner, whatever, is ask yourself, like on a daily basis, do the people that buy from me make me want to hang out with them? And if not, that's a big problem.
Yeah.
Right? Who do you actually want to hang out with on a day-to-day basis, and are you selling to them? Because your life will be much happier, and in the end, your business and the content you produce will probably be a lot better if you're making it for people you actually genuinely enjoy and like to spend time with. So that's the number one thing I would tell anyone to do, like right this second, is ask that question.
That is amazing. We had a similar question posed by Gavin. I don't know if you remember when he came here.
Yeah.
He's, again, another incredible marketer. His term wasn't coffee. He's like, you wanted people that you can go and get a beer with, right?
Yes.
And we're like,
I mean,
absolutely,
where's he
that would
from?
be so much fun.
That's so funny.
He's from
Yeah.
Scotland.
Yeah, he's from Scotland.
He's
so,
Scottish, so obviously he's gonna go for the brewskis.
Exactly.
But yeah, absolutely.
It's so funny that somebody asked you the same question. We've had a lot of similarities in our backgrounds.
Yeah, there's so much.
Awesome.
I mean, I wish we had the similarity of music. Not gonna lie, that's a talent I wish I would have developed and make flourish in my life.
know.
But we're working towards it, man. One of these
That's
days we're gonna do a duet. I'll play the guitar.
No smelly cat, please.
No smelly cat.
Yeah. Matt, last question of the show. And we at some point we're gonna have to do part 2 because this has been like so fun. Where will you be if you did not publish?
Honestly, I'd be working for somebody else, making 40 grand a year. That's where I'd be. And I'd be unhappy. That's the bottom line.
Living at the beach?
So podcasting and content as a whole changed my life. It's introduced me to all the relationships, all the key relationships I have right now came from publishing content in one way, shape, or form. From business mentors to my co-host, the equivalent of, Luis in my life is my co-host, Greg, who's up in the Bay Area on my real estate podcast. That podcast has 1.5 million downloads. We were speaking across the country and doing speaking engagements 1.5 years into starting our podcast. Like, it happened that fast, 18 months.
Yes.
And I was micro famous in the real estate agent space. Publishing content changed literally everything in my life.
Wow.
I wouldn't be publishing the music, right?
Yep.
Because I'd be working for somebody else 40, 50 hours a week, stressed out of my mind, managing accounts. And I wouldn't have the mental and emotional space to even create music. I figured that out the hard way.
Yeah.
That's why I started systematizing the business so relentlessly and rigorously, to the point where everything in the business is a system, because that's the only way I could free up the mental and emotional space to do the things that I care about in music and to enjoy running the business. So yeah, if I didn't put out content, none of those good things would have happened in my life.
Wow.
How's that?
Thank you for sharing, man. And this,
I know that goal moment, dude.
yes, we're like,
okay.
man, the golden boulders. Matt, the reason we ask this question is for those listening to understand the impact that staying consistent with publishing can do for somebody, right? And on Wednesday we had Josh Forty here for the second time. He's a really good friend. He was actually one of our first clients for the service that we currently offer. And he says something very impactful. He said, when you start to publish, you don't do it for anybody else. You just do it for yourself. You start publishing and it starts, turning those thoughts into words. It starts building something inside of you. And then immediately you start building a community around you, right? And that's something that I see in you, man. Like, of course, I didn't know pre-publishing Matt, but I can tell that just the act of being in front and having these powerful, meaningful conversations with other people. I mean, you just said it, right? It changed your life. Yeah. So the reason we ask this question is to inspire, motivate the listener right now to take action, right? Go ahead and take consistent action over a long period of time. So thank you so much, Matt. This has been absolutely amazing.
Where can people connect with you, Matt? Where can people find out more about you and what you guys do?
All in one place. GetMicrofamous.com. And then you can get, there's a free digital copy of the book there. And of course, if you're a physical copy person like I am, that right back there, you can get the physical copy on Amazon.
Yes, let's go. We're going to leave all the links right below in the description. As usual, all you got to do is scroll with that thumb and or whatever finger you like to scroll with.
If you like to scroll with the index finger, it's okay. We don't judge.
We don't judge. I know. One day, Fonzie's like, grab your thumb and scroll. I'm like, who does that? Anyways, Matt, anything else you want to add before we head out?
No, I'm good, guys. This has been a blast. I appreciate it. Very honored to be here.
Awesome. Thank you. With that said, thank you so much for tuning into the Contents Profit podcast. Go ahead and follow the show on your favorite platform and on social media at BIZBROS Co.
That is right. And if Matt helped you take one step forward towards your goal, please don't forget to share this episode. You might be doing the same for somebody else. And don't forget to leave a 5-star review. See ya.
Bye.